done in the ways that you think does the reopening. And today's show is a little bit different in the sense that
on looking at
obviously
how
a lot of
Voyage
that
has
conversation
tools
is
or
going to take place.
And welcome to TGIF. Welcome to Ocean Freight TV. I'm your host, Steve Herrera, CEO of Ocean Audit and Ocean Freight TV. And welcome to Money in Transition, the Ocean Freight edition. And I'll tell you, that pink jacket is enough to kind of catch your eyes on a beautiful Friday. So I want to wear that to memorialize our great show today. It's great to be with you all again. I am really excited about today's episode. And I'm going to be unveiling a world premiere way to help BCOs have the money, not in transition to other people's bank accounts, but keep that money in your bank account. It's a really interesting aspect of the ocean freight industry. And it's really interesting. This week I was played a small part in the deputy editor of the Wall Street Journal, Kim Nash, wrote a great column on cybersecurity as it relates to the logistics industry and ocean freight, talking about some of the challenges that expeditors faced in their not so distant past cyber attack. And so I was, yours truly was, in the news in the Wall Street Journal this week, which is always great, always one of the most prestigious articles and papers to be featured in. So I want to thank Kim Nash of the Wall Street Journal for that mention. And I think it's really an appropriate topic because the whole issue of cyber, right? We're being watched, data. The theme of Ocean Audit for many years has been kind of data, money, and more, and it really is that. And playing off of the great piece that Kim Nash did that I was named in, I think Americans, the whole system is kind of rigged against Americans right now. I think Americans are at deep risk, with regards to certain transactions happening in ocean freight, be it how they may not be protected as maybe advertised by, let's say, the Ocean Shipping Reform Act or by the Federal Maritime Commission. I think Americans are at risk. And I've mentioned this in my last show, and nowhere are they more at risk with the fact that as e-commerce evolves, more and more Americans are buying direct from China, direct from the factories, direct from the wholesalers, and under these so-called de minimis rules where you don't pay duty or get duty charges on anything under, I believe it's $800. So the fact that these e-commerce transactions are now being promulgated up in the Ocean Freight Manifest leaves a lot of Americans' data at risk. Addresses, phone numbers, likes, dislikes. We did a study actually as part of the review for Kim at the Wall Street Journal. I showed her an example of this. And we actually picked a person in small town Ohio, right, that was into arts and crafts, right? So we could actually see this individual from her home address buying art kits, beads, beading, art and crafts type materials, right? This is a marketer's dream. Can you imagine, running a Facebook campaign or some kind of ad campaign where you have this data and you're able to project, you're a Chinese factory selling beads or arts and crafts material? Well, you found the perfect consumer, right? Somebody that buys these products directly from the factory. And it's all being revealed to to us in real time. The problem is nobody knows it, and nobody's really doing much about it. And that's why the whole aspect of what we're talking about comes down to money. Money is always in transition, spending it, saving it, leaving too much on the table. I think that the idea here is that importers, being tracked like they have never been tracked before. Artificial intelligence, for example, can create deep fakes of a purchase order sequence, taking it from the automated manifest system that you've left unprotected. You could competitors and rogue actors can now communicate directly with vendors, faking letterheads, PO numbers, to try to find out your true cost, try to find out your projections. It's a wild, wild world out there. And I did a study, I think I've mentioned this before, on LinkedIn, which talked about the fact that over 500,000 people in our industry, in logistics managers, purchasing logistics procurement, and so on and so forth, out of the 500,000 people, 20% of those 500,000 are in their roles less than 2 years. So this is a bit like Las Vegas, where we've left a lot of the ocean industry heavy lifting material, the truss, the mortar, the bricks, to the vendors, to the providers. Right? The odds are in their favor and not yours. And so the whole idea is, how do we make that money in transition maybe not move so fast? Or how do we make sure that it leaves at the pace that you want it to leave at? I think money is always in transition in other industries, but it's static in ocean freight, right? Because no one really knows what the rules are. There are like 3 people on the planet that could even come close to solving the problem I've solved. And I think that when you look at money being fairly exchanged, it's stacked against the BCO in the ocean industry. The BCO, the importer-exporter, generally speaking, and again, I say this with peace and love, tends to maybe err on the side of rolling over a bit in terms of what the vendor is looking for. And that's not fair. And that's not fair gameplay, and that's not a zero-sum game. That's really tipped in the odds favor of how the system is set up for failure. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that we have so many new, younger participants in the industry that really kind of rely on that box henhouse type genre and get the information right from the vendor as opposed to credible sources in the trade, such as myself or LinkedIn or other trade events, right, where there's more of a neutrality. And I really think that that's the key here. One way that I have matured and developed, and it just dawned on me, right? I'm going on my 42nd or 41st year in the ocean industry. And we have to find a way to keep money from leaving its happy place. And the happy place for your money is really your corporate treasury. We don't want it to leave. We don't want it to leave any more than it has to. We understand that the sins of Containergeddon can be totally redeemed and recovered, but in ways that the media is not sharing with you, right? Now, listen, I will be a featured guest, and this is a big breaking story on Sarah Barnes Humphrey's Let's Talk Supply Chain edition of her show, Let's Talk Coffee, right? And it's on May 2nd. Sorry, I had a brain freeze, Sarah. And I'll be talking and I'll be eviscerating, the Federal Maritime Commission and really the Biden administration in terms of how they've approached being the savior, quote unquote, of the American consumer. So much to the fact that, in 6 months or 7 months, they've recovered less than $700,000 right in detention, demurrage, and other third-party kind of ancillary charges. It's really a sucky proposition for the American consumer. So we'll be breaking that down with one of my friends and one of the great media and visionaries in our industry, Sarah Barnes Humphreys. Can't wait to be on Sarah's show on May 2nd. Catch it on Sarah's link or Let's Talk Supply Chain or my link. And we'll have a special surprise during that show to reveal as well. But for now, in terms of how we kind of look upon leveling that playing field. Let me demonstrate to you in the next second or so here. I'll finish up this little monologue. But I created something called Vessel Voyage, and it's the first time the world premiere of Vessel Voyage. And what Vessel Voyage does is it basically takes where I leave off on my ocean post-audit. Right now I'm handling 20 of the Fortune 100 in terms of cost recovery for post-auditing. Now, Vessel Voyage becomes the pre-audit tool once a client has completed the post-audit. So the whole idea behind this innovative approach of money in transition that I've developed is I never like to charge anybody for anything, right, that I didn't earn, right? So I look at the post-audit as giving back a pile of money, big pile of cash. I look at the pre-audit as more transactional based. But guess what? If somebody likes what they see in the next 15 minutes, it's a pretty inexpensive service to use the Vessel Voyage pre-audit. Pre-audit corrects and identifies the error in real time with the vendor. And I made, rather than kind of take you through it and look at the camera, look at the keyboard, yesterday I made a incredible video, which I hope the audience will enjoy. So why don't we roll the worldwide introduction of Vessel Voyage, and we'll give you a great review of what it does and what its worldwide capabilities are. So let's go ahead and see that now. Hi, I'm Steve Ferreira of Ocean Freight TV. Today's episode is called Ocean Freight Transitions. Follow the money. And by following the money, we now develop a new one-of-a-kind system that every shipper, importer, exporter, BCO, can immediately get up to speed on in 10 to 12 minutes and have a real-time understanding of the accuracy of their ocean freight invoice. Now, that's real recovery, pre-recovery, cost avoidance of the important working capital in your treasury and your budget. Now, Vessel Voyage is designed to identify a ocean freight invoice 3 to 4 days after it's been issued or after it's sailed from its origin port, and correct the invoice and share the correction with the vendor for remediation. All done for you as a done for you service before your cargo arrives at its destination port, before the clock starts ticking on your aging and your receivables. So let me demonstrate briefly for today's Ocean Freight TV episode how Vessel Voyage works and how it's right for you so that you can get a real-time metric of what's happening in your ocean freight supply chain. I'm going to take you through two different views today. One is from the aspect of the audit team, which is basically myself, and the client. So we'll talk about how the invoices get populated into Vessel Voyage. Remember, it's a real-time system, and the invoices are not coming in via the very shaky way that EDI takes in an invoice in a 310 or 315 environment. The invoices that come into Vessel Voyage come in through a special arrangement with each ocean vendor that can easily send a PDF copy of the invoice without changing the current state of your invoicing. So in other words, think of me as a off-ramp where the vendor says, okay, we're going to send a special PDF invoice to Ocean Audit that gets set into a special client box, for example, client name at oceanaudit.com, and you have your own mailbox, and each vendor sends your invoices to that mailbox. The PDF gets machine read and the data stripped from the PDF and input into the Vessel Voyage system. It's that simple. Now I'm going to take you through because there are lots of invoices loaded in this particular demonstration I'm giving you right now. I thought I'd take you through a prime example of how some clients may choose to use Vessel Voyage. Remember, this is a done-for-you service. You have a web portal, you have your own password, but you do not have to transact or do any kind of manipulation in Vessel Voyage, other than if you wanted to go into the system, for example, and archive old invoices or mark them paid. You really have little or nothing to do with regards to the identification of billing accuracies with your ocean provider. You also get real-time summary and detailed Excel reports to help you understand on a given vessel voyage or time frame what your exposure is on the invoice amount versus what was actually audited. And it's a great litmus test for those regularly monthly business review meetings that you may have with your vendor to help them also improve. Why are the inaccuracies happening in real time on your ocean freight billing? So there's a lot of real reasons why this is a positive. Now, what a lot of my clients do is we obviously Ocean Audit is the gold standard on post-audit. So invoices that have been previously paid, 2021, 2020, 21, 22, 23, even before 2020, some invoices are still eligible for refunding. But let's get all that post-audit money vacuumed up. So let's just say you're a typical client and you get back, say, $500,000 in old refunds from the last 3 years. So now you have a pot of 500,000 in gross refunds. And after my fee of say 50%, you now have $250,000 in new money or old money that you never knew that you had coming back to you. But we repatriated that money from the ocean vendor via direct carrier and via forwarder back to your treasury. So now you have $250,000 net refund. Vessel Voyage is a done-for-you service featuring a charge per container. So the charge is not really a significant fee. However, many of my clients look at Vessel Voyage as getting de facto real-time auditing because they already have won a incredible amount of funds from the post-audit recovery process where we actually showed them the money. Now we're transitioning into the money, and the money management is that you don't burn off any excess working capital. You're paying the ocean vendor a true bill, a true invoice. So let's talk a little bit about that. And obviously, you see the benefits of where I've taken the tool. And to my knowledge, I'm the only person in the world that's created such a system and such a tool as a done-for-you service. Okay, so we're in the super administrative portal, which is the audit portal. And we see here, hundreds and hundreds of green lights. So I built the system on a green light, red light, yellow light system. Green meaning the invoice is good to go as billed against the audit. Red, there's a defect or deficiency. And yellow or red yellow means that the invoice is in transition between curing it with the vendor and perhaps getting some more information to categorize it into the green, right? So we always want to go from red to green or red and yellow to green as the status flow on your invoicing. So let's I've taken the time to outline a MERS bill of lading, for example, that has a defect. Now remember, we're in the auditor portal. So here's the bill of lading, 223621. I've entered the bill of lading into the portal. So the portal will now search all invoices, all bills of lading, container numbers. Again, I put the bill of lading number to search, so it'll search on by bill of lading number. And so when we do that, we can see we brought up the invoice number, client we've blanked out for confidentiality purposes, the vendor, bill of lading number, vessel voyage, and the invoice amount, and then the audited amount. Right? We're going to talk about those two things in a second. But we can see here that we've got the audit amount at 24,900 and the invoice amount at 29,400. Now, what the auditor will do, you see here, it's a red light. So the red light, to go from red to green, we need to comment on it. So Amendment 4 prevails over Amendment 3. Great. And then the auditor will put his timestamp in when that is done. The vendor will come back via email, not via the system, because we found that it's best to put a reminder in the system so that if the vendor does not comment in 3 days, the status will go to yellow, which is a reminder for the auditor as a done-for-you service to reach out again to the contact at the vendor to get the comment or the resolution for this particular invoice. Agree with audit, and the vendor will, the resolution date will be the date the email comes through where the vendor has agreed to the resolution. So now we have a perfectly formatted cure on the red light, and we will submit those comments to the system. So now as we move through the process, we can look over at the client screen. So the beauty of the system is designed so that the client has full visibility to every invoice, bill rating, container number, and has the ability to look at the invoice through clicking this download file feature, which we'll do in a second. But first, let's go to the troubled invoice that was in the red, 3621. And we'll now search. Again, now we're in the client portal. You can see here, welcome back so-and-so, blanked out for confidentiality purposes. But now we'll search for that invoice. And we have gone from, again, this is the client seeing it in St. Louis or in London or in Sydney or in Tokyo. But you can see here the auditor's comments are now populated on the client side, that the vendor agrees with the audit, the resolution date, and most importantly, that we are now in a green situation so that the client can pay the audited with tolerance amount as opposed to the invoice amount. Now, this is all done before the client pays the featured rate level. Instead of $29,400, they will pay $24,900. Now, I promise you that you could actually look at the invoice itself, and through this feature here, you can actually look and see the original invoice. And that's a very significant feature of Vessel Voyage to help the customer better understand the idiosyncrasies of the tool. Now, there are multiple containers on this particular invoice. And so from the customer perspective, I'm going to now take you through a detailed perspective to look at how the customer would see this or be able to download, for example, all invoices in red into Excel, or all invoices in green, or all invoices that have been within a particular start and stop date or resolution date. So the client has many options to import or export, the results of the audit in a summary or detail format. Now let me click that. Let me click the detail screen for Excel. And we'll have to move the fields in the Excel a little bit, just because the reason how Excel works. But here you can see we've got the invoice number, the invoice date, bill rating number, the key place of receipt, the final destination, the vessel, the voyage, the container numbers, the container type, the invoiced amount, the correct rate per unit, per container, the auditor comments, the auditor date, resolution date, and most importantly, a URL which enables the client to click on and bring up the invoice as well directly from the Excel. So it's an amazing strategy, an amazing tool that we've rolled out, and we continue to enhance and add new bells and whistles on that help the client. As a matter of fact, we've now come up with a new process where we're back in the super administration portal right now, where we can actually look at the invoices and see all the container detail. And let's say a client has a series of 10 containers that they want to check on the status. They can actually take a CSV file and input the Excel file of the 10 containers they want to check. And the system will actually, Excel-based, print out those 10 containers, the status of those 10 containers the customer's looking to nominate or approve, for that particular week. And this is particularly helpful in the freight audit and payment process where you've got questions on, say, a limited amount of containers and you don't want to go through the process of searching and hunting. You can do your own container upload in terms of what's feasible. But again, this is from the perspective of the client will give us this, we'll run this for them, and they'll have the results back in their screen. So it's an amazing tool that I've developed here at Ocean Audit, and it's a very simple dashboard the client has at their disposal, the ability to search in multi ways and to actually command the new enhancement that we've just added. What we'll be adding is the ability to mark something paid and the ability for the client themselves to do an import run, a CSV upload of, say, the containers that they want to check on a given week in terms of the status. Now, there's many different ways to do that. For example, you could say, I want to see everything on the Zim Hong Kong, Voyage 18. You could actually do that here and then run a search on everything on that vessel voyage. So I've really given the client multiple ways, multiple options to follow the money and make sure that all ocean freight invoice billing, whether it's from an import or export situation, is congruous to the actual service contract rate levels that have been promulgated by the ocean vendors and directly to the end user. So again, think of this as a 1-2 punch. We've got the admin portal, which is done by Ocean Audit. We've got the client portal, which is a much cleaner, sleeker version. And the whole idea here is to eliminate any overpayment on ocean freight or sea freight, both now and in the future. And most clients implement this way to follow the money after they go through the ocean freight post-audit so that they really are getting a pre-audit at almost a net zero cost, or by using the old dead money that we've already recovered for the client from the past. And again, the beauty of the system is being able to see all the erroneous invoices at any one time and the ability to basically have those corrected in real time by the ocean freight audit team, which is really basically Steve Ferreira. Since I'm a solopreneur, I'm running the back office mechanizations on most of this on a bespoke basis by the client. And obviously, we'll bring in additional team to support as this service grows in popularity, which it's already doing at great, terrific rates. So I hope you've enjoyed today's demonstration of vessel voyage, ocean freight transitions, and way to follow the money. And now I'll throw it back to the guy that's transitioned in this crazy picture with sunglasses and pink jackets. A transition in a way that makes your life as an importer or exporter easier. So again, follow the money, look at vessel voyage, and hey, Steve, we're going to toss it back to you. Well, thanks, Steve. That was really illuminating. And guys, I really appreciate your watching the overview on Vessel Voyage. It's an incredible new tool that I developed. And I will tell you something that a lot of people will probably question. Why use PDFs? Well, about 7 years ago, I threw about $100K plus of my money into an EDI pre-audit tool. And I found that EDI is just a horrible way to pre-audit ocean freight. So anyone out there, the sound of my voice and watching the show, that has ocean audited in an EDI environment, you're doing it all wrong. I'll be so bold to come out and say that is not the right way to do it. Take it from someone that lost over $100,000 trying to perfect an EDI-based system for ocean freight. It's just not there. You can forget what you want to talk about APIs or any other kind of modality. The PDF is the single best way to extract the most perfected data. And so I want to thank you again for the overview on identifying how you would gain and benefit from using Vessel Voyage. And it's true, in kind of closing out today's show, ocean freight money really never sleeps. Money is always in transition. And from Walmart on down, you are being tracked in ocean freight. Data and money totally rule the day. Now listen, public tracking is not all that evil. It does have its evil tenets. But for example, I use public tracking to enhance a client's recovery. It wouldn't be possible for me to do the kind of work I do in post-audit and pre-audit without understanding your internal setups, because knowing the setup, right, is like a good stock trade. If you understand where a stock's going and where its earnings are, where the forecasts are, you become a de facto expert on knowing setups and manipulations of the data. And that's really what I am, is kind of a data savant as it relates to ocean freight. So I think, the 800-pound gorilla here is really your nemesis, right? It's the vendor that is, just there with that static kind of cash inflow, but not much going back to you. I think I've told the story before, how a leading ocean freight vendor told me that, Steve, we really don't mind what you do. It's just that we won't be a self-service bank for your client. The client wants funds back. They're going to have to justify it. So at the end of the day, it's rule or be ruled, right? And I think that this is the opportunity for you for the first time to level the playing field and really keep what's yours, get back what was yours, and take advantage of the fact that the money in transition is the money that gets back into your pocket and the money that never unnecessarily leaves your corporate pocket or corporate treasury. So really, that is a great overview of today's show. I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit more about Vessel Voyage. If you'd like to put Vessel Voyage in use, it's available for usage in any part of the world on demand. And we can do it in combination with the Ocean post-audit or standalone pre-audit. Just message me for more details, and I'll be glad to discuss your particular bespoke situation. Well, that's all for today's edition. You've been watching myself. I'm Steve Ferreira, CEO of Ocean Audit and Ocean Freight TV, on another edition of Ocean Freight TV, Ocean Freight Money in Transition. Until next week, have a great weekend, and connect with me below on LinkedIn. Follow me, message me at stevef@oceanaudit.com, or give me a call if you'd like more answers and questions, if you have more questions and need some answers on the next steps for your recovery. So until then, have a great weekend. Bye, everyone. Thanks for watching.